think he's a much more talented winger. I think he fit better as a replacement for maybe Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain are playing on the wing, but I just don't think he's exactly what Arsenal need right now. Like you said, I think there are more crucial positions or styles of play that they really do need to add to this team. So I do think, at the end of the day, I think he will be returning to Borussia Dortmund, at least for the time being. All right, now on to two quick deals that went down. Julian Draxler has agreed to terms with Juventus. Of course, Juventus and Schalke still have to come to a deal, but it does look like that move will go through, as Juventus are looking for a player to add to the midfield, which could put to rest all of the Mario Götze to Juventus rumors. And also a done deal, Felipe Luis, after a one-year failed experiment with Chelsea, is headed back to Atletico Madrid, the team that he appeared in the Champions League final against Real Madrid with, and he is headed back. All right, moving on, we're going to go into competition talk right now, and we're going to start off with a very quick talk about England in European competition. I heard this somewhere where somebody said that England has struggled the past few years, and they said that if Italy has another year like they did and England has another year like they did, they would pass them. I just really want to address that. First of all, England normally finishes second or third in the club coefficient. This is the first time in the past 5 years that Italy has finished above them. Also, this is also one of the first years that England hasn't had a quarterfinalist. They normally do. I wouldn't say it was disappointing. I also heard somewhere that Chelsea had been a disappointment the past few years. They've won 2 out of the past 6. That's as many as Man U and Man City. They've also won a Champions League and made it to the semifinals. I really wouldn't call that a disappointment. Just wanted to cover that really quickly. All right, on to the scoreboard update. We've got a couple of matches that went down today. Like I said, USA suffered a 3-2 defeat on penalties after being 1-1 after 120 to Panama. Barcelona lost to Manchester United 3-1 in the International Champions Cup. In the Emirates Cup, Arsenal going up against a potential future player, Alexander Lacazette, won 6-0. Dominant fashion there. Great win for them. AC Milan also won in the International Champions Cup, and right now, a game that is in the 74th minute, PSG and Chelsea, sort of a rematch game for Chelsea after Chelsea lost to PSG in the round of 16 in the Champions League, are tied at 1-1. Goals from Zlatan Ibrahimovic in the 25th and Victor Moses, a potential Tottenham transfer, in the 65th. All right, that wraps up the scoreboard for today. So, let's get really quickly into some of the other stuff. In the ICC Australia, Real Madrid got the win. They beat Manchester City, Manchester City in emphatic fashion to seal the deal and win ICC Australia. ICC China kicked off with a 1-0 AC Milan win over crosstown rivals, or not even crosstown because they play in the same stadium, in-stadium rivals, Inter Milan. And then in the ICC North America, basically, if PSG wins this game, we will have a winner-take-all final between Manchester United and PSG in Chicago to decide. Right now, atop the table is Manchester United with 9. PSG, if the results hold, would have 7. Then we have Red Bulls with 3, Galaxy 3, Barcelona 3, America 3, Fiorentina 2, if the result holds, Benfica 1, Chelsea 1, and San Jose Earthquakes none. Alright, now we can get into the stuff we actually want to talk about, and that is the Gold Cup final, which will be played tomorrow between Mexico and Jamaica. Mexico got in there controversially, I would have to say, on a penalty that really wasn't a penalty. In fact, Andres Guardado of Mexico, of course, being the winning team, you think, alright, he had no issues with making that penalty. He actually came out and said that he considered missing it intentionally. Of course, being the competitor he is, that just didn't happen. However, it would have been, I wouldn't say honorable, but an interesting story to talk about. However, he didn't make it, and Mexico would go on to defeat Panama. But now, Mexico, for the powerhouse versus Jamaica. We're going to get your prediction right now, Carl. Who do you think comes out on top tomorrow in a pretty interesting storyline for a Gold Cup final?
I mean, I absolutely am rooting for Jamaica to win this one. In my opinion, they are a great storyline, and I think they're the team that I really do want, especially because I think Mexico shouldn't have won that game. I think Mexico knows they shouldn't have won that game. But overall, in the end, I still have to pick Mexico. It hurts me, and it's one of those things where I don't want to be picking them, but I have to, and I have to go with my better judgment, which is picking the more experienced and more talented side, that is Mexico.
I agree with you. I'm going to go with Mexico here. While I think that Jamaica's a good team, and I think they'll put up a fight, I think Mexico's got a bit of luck here. And this is my phrase, I wouldn't be surprised if Jamaica won. But I really wouldn't be. This is a weird Gold Cup we've had here. The good teams really haven't performed, and it seems like Mexico's needed a lot of luck to go through. So I do think Jamaica will keep it close. But if I were a betting man, I've got to go with Mexico here. I think they're the favorite going in. They're a very good team. They've won Gold Cups in the past, and while Jamaica's been good, they don't quite have that same level of experience. So I do think Mexico will win in a close one. I'll go 2-1 Mexico over Jamaica as they win the Gold Cup and qualify for the Confederations Cup, which will be held in 2017 in Russia. All right, the Emirates Cup, of course, we went with Arsenal winning 6-0. Let's be fair here. This is basically Arsenal's cup. This is where they go and play a bunch of not as good teams. And I was actually pretty surprised with the way that they manhandle Lyon. I mean, that was a pretty emphatic win, and this is not a bad Lyon team. This is a team that is going to be playing in the Champions League next year. They're a talented team. Alexander Lacazette sought after by a lot of really good teams. Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, all in on him. But Arsenal handled them. They still have to play. They still have some good teams to play, but I think this is a great way to show that they are back to being a really dominant team. They didn't play well against Monaco, so to go up against another Champions League team and really show that dominance is great. Villarreal and Wolfsburg, of course, both played. They played each other. In fact, Villarreal picking up the win, also scoring 2 goals. The interesting way the Emirates Cup works, and I don't know if you knew this, Carl, but
I did know this, actually.
Every goal you score counts as a point, which means Arsenal
great.
now has 9 points, so they could theoretically lose and still who are they playing next? Do you know? Wolfsburg. They could theoretically lose to Wolfsburg 1-0, or they could lose more than that. They could lose 3-0 and 4-0. 4-0. They could lose 4-0 and still have more points. Love that system. Love it.
It's a pretty great system.
But yeah, this is Arsenal's Cup. But let's get to another topic. I think this is probably the bigger thing that we've had. World Cup prelim draw. We got the draws for World Cup qualification for every conference. Of course, Asia had already started. But it's time to break down each conference. Or confederation, excuse me. So let's start with Oceania. Carl, this should be the hardest one you have. Who are you picking? No pressure, this is for $1 million.
Oh boy. $1 million? I don't know, but I mean, let's be honest here. It's Oceania, especially since Australia left the Confederation. It's New Zealand's to lose, and then they'll probably play in a playoff and lose anyway, and the OFC will have no one in the World Cup.
Yay! Lovely thoughts, lovely thoughts. I agree with you, New Zealand, and I don't think they'll be able to make it out of the playoff. Alright, quickly over to Asia. I'd say the favorites are probably the same teams we've seen for a couple of years. Japan, South Korea, and Australia are the 3 with another team thrown in there. So I'd probably say those are the 3 locks. Number 4, I'd gotta say, that could be basically a toss-up. But I'd be pretty sure of Australia, Japan, and South Korea making another appearance this year. Carl, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think Iran has a legitimate chance to make it in. And we all know the FIFA World Rankings are pretty bad, but they are ranked 38th, which means they've won a couple of games here and there. I think just overall, Iran is a team, they made it to the last World Cup. They've done it before. They've made it, in fact, to 3 of the last 5 World Cups. And overall, they tend to be a fairly talented team who's up there in Asian competition, so I think Iran has a legitimate chance.
Alright, moving on to Africa. By the way, we're going to coast through a couple of these until we get to Europe and South America, especially Europe. Over to Africa. Once again, like Asia, I think you've got those teams that you're just going to say, alright, shoo 'em in. Ivory Coast, Ghana. I think Tunisia has a legitimate shot this year of making it, as does Nigeria. Once again, So those are my four teams that I think will make it out. I think this is a pretty solid confederation, pretty decent top to bottom. Of course, when it comes to the knockout stages, they've never been very successful. But I think this is still a fun confederation to watch during qualification.
I mean, absolutely, and they have 5 places in the final, despite and with no playoff. I mean, there's definitely room for a surprising team to make it out, but overall, you're right about that depth. I mean, they've got quite a few teams who are good, and I think that it all starts with the example that's been set by the Ivory Coast. When you look at them, they have some of the great players in the... I mean, they've got guys like Yaya Toure who come out of Ivory Coast, so they've got some great players, and you've got to look at Ghana, who's, they may not have the great players, but they definitely make their name heard when they get to the World Cup.
Yep. All right, moving on. Headed over to CONCACAF. I'm going to breeze through this real quick. I know that there are the 3 teams that are essentially locks for me. Costa Rica, I think, is going to make it this year, alongside Mexico and the U.S. And once again, I think it's going to come down to another one of those random teams, Honduras, Panama, or Jamaica. And I just don't see Honduras doing it this time. I do think Jamaica's really starting to show their mettle, and I think Jamaica will finally get their spot in the World Cup, which I think will be really a lot of fun to watch. Jamaican fans really do bring a lot of passion to the game, and I think it'll be a fun fan base to have in the 2018 World Cup.
Well, and I agree with you on the teams it comes down to, but in my opinion, Panama has shown just as much merit in this World Cup. I think they should have won that. I mean, it's Gold Cup, excuse me, and I think they should have won that game overall. And I think that Panama has shown that they are a team who can do some things in this. I mean, they've never made a World Cup. Panama has never won. I don't believe Jamaica has as well. Pardon me if I'm wrong. Excuse me, Jamaica has made one World Cup. That was in 1998.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about some teams who are inexperienced on the world stage, but I think that Panama is going to be able to make it through, and I think that either of the teams has a chance. And you never know, a team like Trinidad is also in the mix. But I think that the Panama and Jamaica both have great chances to make it into their first World. Although we should note, it is a playoff out of CONCACAF once you make it. So the 4th team has to go in a playoff from CONCACAF. That's where the Asia 15.
All right, on to the next confederation, which is CONMEBOL. Well, I mean, let's be fair here. It is 5 teams making it out. The 5th team is going to play the Oceania team. There are 5 clear teams, really, in South America for me. Uruguay, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, and Brazil. I think those are the 5 that'll move on. Those are the 5 that were in the last World Cup. Of course, Ecuador also making it in. But I just don't think Ecuador has the overall talent that those teams do. I don't think Venezuela, who played great last World Cup, will do it. Paraguay, it could be a team that could push maybe one of those teams. But I do think those 5 are the favorites to move on, and I think those 5 will be the ones that find themselves in the World Cup.
I absolutely agree.
Quick, simple, easy from Carl. And now we move on to the confederation that I think this is the one that you always get a little more intrigue from, and that is UEFA Europe, of course. Finally get the groups, and we have a couple intriguing ones, starting off with Group A, which for me may be the most difficult group, headed by Netherlands, of course, a very talented team, semi-finalists last year, finalists the World Cup before. France, of course, who had a tough out against Germany, and Sweden, led by Zlatan Ibrahimovic. They will be joined by Bulgaria, Belarus, and Luxembourg. So as we go through the groups, Carl, Group A, who do you think tops it? Who do you think comes in second?
I mean, I still like the Dutch. We talked about their league early on, and I think they create some fantastic talent. So I'll take the Dutch as the number 1 team. And the team that's second place making that playoff, you know what? I'm going to pick Sweden over France. I think that France has continually showed kind of a lack of drive at times, just overall a disappointing national team comparatively, and I think that Sweden, especially with Zlatan, has the ability to make the playoff.
I think Sweden is going to push all of these teams, but I do think Zlatan's he is aging, so I'm going to go with France in first. Netherlands, I think Robben's getting up there in age. Van Persie, definitely not the player he used to be. Neither is Schneider. I do think they have young players that are up and coming, like Memphis Depay, like Wijnaldum, but I do think this team will fall a little bit short and finish in second. All right, on to Group B. This group seems to have a pretty clear top two. Portugal right now is the head of the group.